Good evening, everyone. Today, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is J.S. Praise Divine. I'm going to give you a word on today and happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We're gonna talk about a woman that was waiting on a child to be a mother. And her name was Sarah. That was Abraham's wife. And sometimes, it take a long time for God to answer. But she took matters in her own hands. So Sarah, are you pregnant yet? That's the name of the time. So God told Abraham, his wife Sarah, would be the mother of the nation. But years had passed, and Sarah was not pregnant. So the shame of barrenness of her with no children. Because the neighbors, they got children. Everyone got children. She had to stand there and just watch everybody else's children just play around. And sometime back in the day, when you had no children, you get criticized. So that's why a lot of women, was ashamed, because they feel like with a child, God bless you with a child. And when you ain't had now, a lot of women back then, they felt ashamed to not have a child. It's going to take her 20 years. But in between those 20 years, instead of her waiting, she took matters in her own hands. So Abraham saw the disappointment, that he see how much she has suffered through the years, just watching other people's children. So Sarah got tired of waiting, and she had her had a slave girl, Hagar, to have a baby to her husband. But her husband, you know, by her husband, but it backfired on her. She thought if she had her slave girl to have a baby by her husband, she thought she was gonna raise the baby, and she wanted it to be hers, but it come and find out it didn't go that way because Hagar wanted her own child. She wanted to raise because Hagar fell in love with Abraham herself, so she didn't want to be her slave girl and just turn her baby over to her, and then she had to stand there and be watching her own baby, so that backfired and that didn't work out. That's her trying to take matters in her own hands because she got tired of waiting on a child. So Sarah was out of ideas. She was out of ideas. That was her idea. She kept on trying to come up with something. And so a long pass of age for having children. And see, both of them got old. Both of them got old because you see, Abraham already was in his 70s when God called him, for a purpose. So he already was at that little age, and so sometimes, God allowed both of them to get old to show his power and his miracle, to show the world that no matter how old you is, God got power to still allow you to have a child. So old people, at a certain age, you don't have to worry if you want a child, because God can use his power because he the one he create children. He create us. So it don't matter what age you is, and sometimes he probably waited till they got to a certain age, to show his power, his miracle, and his glory. So yet Abraham persisted in his desires for a son. He also wanted a son also. So he said that God had promised. See, God had promised this not to Sarah. God had promised this to Abraham. Promise that his offspring in numbers will be as the stars. You ain't gonna be able to count the stars, meaning you ain't gonna be able to count Abraham's offspring. And his offspring came out to be the Israelite, the nation. You can't even count all of them. And see, that's what God had told him. When God had made this promise to him, your offspring is gonna be so many, like the stars, that you won't be able to count them. And then Abraham and Sarah getting so old, he like, what God talking about? What are you talking about? We old, and we still don't have a child yet. So Sarah loved Abraham, but he was faithful, a faithful husband, and he also was faithful to God, and more than a good provider, but he was so restless always. because they got to a certain age, they just like give up. God said, you're gonna be the mother of the nation. He said the children, my offspring, gonna be like the stars. And here we old and we still don't have no kids. So looking for more from life. So she had gone with him from one place to another. Because God had called him when he was like in his 70s, and told him about the purpose, told him about his plan, about his offspring, offspring that he don't even have yet, don't even have children to produce in an offspring yet. So he's still trying to figure out what God's talking about. See, a lot of times we cannot figure out God's plan. God have his own plan, and he always followed through on his plan, and we cannot figure it out. Abraham couldn't figure it out. You own the mother of the nation, my offspring that stars, and here I'm old, and here I don't even have a child yet. you know. So his wife is faithful to him too. So she gone to place with him. Every time leaving people and things they had grown to love. Cause see, God gonna have you going here. He gonna have you going there. And see, that's why Jesus wasn't stationary at a home. Jesus had his backpack and he always was on the run. And everywhere he went, people love him. Not everyone, because everyone's not gonna love you. So most of the places he went to, the ladies love him. They'll feed him, wash his feet and everything. So he never was stationary. He always say, don't accumulate so much stuff. Because when is your time, you cannot take you with you. So that's how Abraham was. So they could not stay at a place a certain longer time because God said, I need you to go here. And I need you to go here. Because she said she followed Abraham from place to place. So Abraham told his wife, maybe God changed his mind. And a lot of times we'll ask that question when it takes a long time. I don't know if David ever asked that question, but Abraham, David got so old to Abraham started questioning things. Well, maybe God changed his mind. So many years had passed, and they both had gotten their age. So sometimes you can get comfortable or not having nothing. Sometimes you can get comfortable of just being and not knowing. So Abraham said God told him that she would be the mother of the nation. Now, that was God's words. God had promised. God mapped his plan out to Abraham. He said, your wife gonna be the mother of the nation. So Sarah laughed. So Sarah laughed. And when she overheard a stranger, see, it was getting close at that time. So she done had the baby, had the slave girl that had the baby, and that backfired on her. She wasn't able to touch the baby, hold the baby. She couldn't do none of that because Hagar wanted to take care of her own baby. So Abraham prayed to God, for a child. You say I'm gonna have children, offspring, men out the stars. Here we don't have no kids, God. We don't have no kids. You say my wife gonna be the mother of the nation. So Abraham prayed on the behalf of his wife and him also, because he wanted a child also. So when this stranger, so when it come close to your time, God gonna send angels. Sometimes God will send a stranger to you, just to let you know. So this stranger came to Abraham and was telling him what about to happen. So the wife, she all in the tent, listening, eavesdropping, and Sarah laughed when she overheard a stranger, say she will bear Abraham a child. Now this was she wanted for so many years, but by she done got so old, she laughed and she thought it was funny, but there her doubt, she had doubt had turned into fear, because it been so long, So when the stranger confronted, her by asking, is anything too hard for our Lord? That's what he was asking all, because he had to ask Abraham why she's laughing. So that's when the stranger said, is anything too hard for God? So she decided to stop doubting, and to stop trying to be in control. Because she was trying to be in control. because she trying to keep on coming up with ideas. So she came with the idea of her slave girl. That didn't work out. So she ran out of ideas and just let herself got old. So when the stranger come up and say, God said, your wife about to bear a child, she laughed and thought it was funny. So she gave the law room to work a miracle in her life. She stopped being in control and allowed God to work a miracle in her life. So Abraham's dream, became several dreams. So a year later, just like that stranger said, the stranger said, by this time next year, your wife will conceive a son. And she laughed. So last year, just like the stranger said, she conceived a son. She born a son, and she named him Isaac. You know, to Sarah, great delight. Sarah got tired of waiting and getting old and was not pregnant. Are you pregnant yet? So she took action in her hands, being in control, and made a mess of everything. And Abraham's first child was through this slave girl Hagar, and that was not part of God's plan. That's why when Abraham had prayed to her, he said, I have a son and from a slave girl, so God already know. He said, but I still want my child from Sarah. So God has said, you're gonna have your own child that will be heir. Because see, Abraham thought that first child was gonna be heir, but that wasn't part of the plan. That was a mess up that Sarah did. So God said, you're going to have your own child, and he will be the heir. But God told Abraham, you will have your own child, and God's word came to pass. Sarah finally had a child, and she is a mother. Today is a mother day. She finally had the child. Are you pregnant yet? And now she is a mother of a child that's going to be the heir of everything of God's plan. Jacob gonna be the man's source. His child Joseph. They're gonna bring God's plan to the finish line. So God was gracious, to Sarah, and God give her a child without regarding of what she did. Because you remember she took things in her own hands. She took matters in her own hands. She wasn't supposed to give a slave girl to her husband because she wanted to try that bag, and it backfired on her because Hagar did not let her hold her child, did not let her touch her child. Hagar wanted to raise her own child. So that wasn't, that didn't even work out for Sarah, but regardless of her mess up, God made a promise to Abraham, and God's plan still went forward. See, a lot of time when God have a plan, you always gonna have someone gonna constantly keep on trying to mess it up. But God gonna always keep on trying to put it back on track. God still put his plan back on track. Even though Sarah tried to mess everything up, God still put it back on track. His first child was supposed to be the heir, but God still made his child the heir because, see, God wanted him to have a child from his wife Sarah. He said Sarah was going to be the mother of the nation, not Hagar. So they try to get his plan all off track, but God always find ways to put his plan back on track. He don't let nobody get in his way or stop it. So her laugh, remember she laughed when that stranger said, by this time next year, you will conceive a child. She laughed and she thought it was funny. But God, how God can turn your sorrows, your laugh, he can turn into laughter. So her laugh of doubt, was turned into laughter, of joy. So even the stranger had to say, why is she laughing? Why is she laughing? What's funny? By this time next year, you're going to have a child. Okay, so who is laughing now? That stranger said, by this time next year, she did conceive that child. And she don't realize God sent that man to you. That was an angel God sent to you. For God to let you know. I know what you did. Try to be in control and try to fix the problem from waiting a long time. And even at Abraham. But maybe God forgot. Maybe God changed his mind. He also had doubt too. So Sarah had doubt. you know, in a lack of faith because of her age, you know, due to her age. And now God made a promise to Abraham, you know. So God kept his promise and accomplished his plan. You know, she tried to mess God's plan up. You know, nobody can mess his plan. They can shake it up a little bit. You know, but he always gonna put it back on track. He put it back on track. He didn't want the Hagar child to be there. He wanted Abraham and Sarah child to be the heir. That was part of his plan. You know, so God is bigger than our weakness. Most of us have weakness. I know I do. You know, of men and women. You know, sometimes we have weakness and sometimes we have lack of faith. And God still can use his power and miracles through our weakness. You know, like he did with Sarah. You know, so the goal is to trust, you know, to trust in the power, you know, to power of the Lord. You know, so we can look at Genesis 21, chapter 6 through 7. Now Sarah had said, God had brought me laughter, you know, and everyone, you know, who hear about this will laugh with her. You know, because see, God took her laugh and turned that laugh into laughter of joy. You know, it's just like when you're in misery and sorrow. God can take that misery and sorrow and turn around for laughter and joy. You know, she laughed. You know, when that man said she gonna have a baby by next year. You know, so next year she had that child. You know, so that's why she said the people with her, they laughed. You know, because she laughed and thought it was funny. But God turned her laugh into laughter of joy. You know, so who would have said, you know, to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? She never thought. She gave up hope. Sometimes you wait a long time. You know, sometimes you give up your hope. You know, she wait. It was like 20 some years. So it was like she had give up hope. So when the man said she was gonna pray, she just laughed. You know, she had give up hope or ever nursing a baby. You know, so that's why she said now. She said, who would ever think that I will be nurturing a child? You know, but yet I have born him a son in my old age. So her and Abraham was old. God allowed them to get old so he could use his power and miracles to conceive their child in Sarah. You know, God said Sarah gonna be the mother of the nation. He meant that. God didn't forget. He wanted them to get old so he could use his power. You know, so they had to wait. You know, they had to wait about 20 some years. You know, when they start losing hope. They start losing hope. You know, even though Sarah messed up, you know, God made a promise to Abraham. You know, and God's plan still moved forward. You know, Sarah laughed. You know, when she heard that they would have a child. You know, at their old age, she thought it was funny because she didn't lose hope. You know, and since she laughed, God had turned her laugh into laughter. You know, so Sarah had a child. She named that child Isaac. You know, Isaac had a child. He named that child, had twins, named them Esau and Jacob. But God took Jacob, you know, blessed him. He was going to be the lead of his plan. And Jacob had a son named Joseph who started God's plan out. And Jacob had came on to God's plan. So God's plan had still followed through. And God told Abraham, you're going to have so much of offspring. You know, it's going to be just like the stars that you cannot count. And he was completely right. You know, Abraham got so much, and the generations go on and on. So many that you can't even count it this way. It was millions of them, of the nation. You know, so nothing is too big for our God to do, even when you get old. You know, so God waited until they both got in their age, you know, to show his power and allow both to conceive, Sarah to conceive a son. You know, because God had planned for Isaac. You know, so Sarah messed up and she put her slave girl on Abraham. That wasn't part of the plan. You know, so God had to put his plan back on track. You know, they always gonna try to mess his plan up, shake it up a little bit. but God always put it back on track. So that's all the news I have. The topic was, Sarah, are you pregnant yet? And she finally had got pregnant after 20 years. And now she is a mother. She is a mother of a child that made history. And she got tired of waiting. Got tired of waiting until she had to try to make a mess of herself, and it backfired on her. And then she got old, her and Abraham. She lost hope, she lost faith. When they say she will conceive a child, she thought it was funny and laughed. And at the end, God turned her laugh into laughter of joy. So that's all the word I have for you today. Y'all have a blessed and safe day on Mother's Day. And I see y'all on the next video.